We're continuing on in our study of Genesis 49, and in this, we'll call it a bonus episode. I want to reread chapter 49, but from a source that is called the Targum Pseudo-Yonatan, or the Targum Jonathan in some renditions. This is like an early version of the translation of the Bible called the Message. It's very much a paraphrase, not really intended to be word for word from the original Hebrew. In fact, the Targum was originally written in Aramaic, possibly as late as the 4th century, but maybe as early as the 1st century. So it gives us a sense of how early Judaism and possibly how even the early church interpreted this passage. And as we mentioned in the last episode, this very poetic, and the Hebrew is very difficult here. So it's tough to understand what Jacob might have been trying to get at, but this will help us because at least 2,000 years ago, it's how people were interpreting the passage. This will primarily be just a reading of this version with very limited commentary. The language tends to be a bit 1800-ish, but I think you'll still find it interesting. Pay specific attention when we get to Judah, what the rabbis had to say about Messiah when we get there. And Yaakov called his sons and said to them, "Purify yourselves from uncleanliness, and I will show you the hidden mysteries, the ends concealed, the recompense of reward for the righteous, the retribution of the wicked, and the bower of Eden, what it is." And the 12 tribes of Israel gathered themselves together around the golden bed whereon he reclines. You can see this very much traditional figurative language coming in. We don't get any of this from the text, but it's just how they were reading it. And where was revealed to him the Shekinah, the glory of the Lord, though the end for which the King Messiah is to come and has been concealed from him. So right off the bat, we can see that the sages were viewing this as a messianic passage. Then said he, "Come, and I will declare to you what shall befall you at the end of the days." They're taking a very definite, this is the day of the Lord view here. "Gather yourselves together and hear, O sons of Yaakov, and receive instruction from Yisrael your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, the beginning of strength of my generation, and the chief event of my thoughts. To thee belong the birthright, and the high priesthood, and the kingdom. But because you have sinned, my son, the birthright is given to Joseph, the kingdom to Yehudah, and the priesthood to Levi. I will liken thee to a little garden in the midst of which there enter torrents swift and strong, which it cannot bear, but is overwhelmed. Be repentant then, Reuben, my son, for you have sinned, and add not," no reference to Joseph there, Joseph means to add or gather in, "then wherein you have sinned it may be forgiven thee, for it is reckoned to thee as if you went in to have to do with the wife of thy father at the time that you did confound my bed upon which you went up." Shimeon, and Simeon is Shimeon in Hebrew, or Shimon. Shimeon and Levi are brothers of their womb. Their thoughts are like sharp weapons for rapine. In their counsel my soul hath not had pleasure, and in their gathering against Shechem to destroy it. My hour was not united, for in their anger they slew the prince and the ruler, and in their ill they demolished the wall of their adversary. And Yaakov said, "Accursed was the town of Shechem when they entered it within it to destroy, for it was their violent wrath and their hatred against Joseph. It was relentless. If," said Yaakov, "they dwell together, no king, no ruler may stand before them. Therefore I will divide the inheritance of the sons of Shimeon into 2 portions. One part shall come to them out of the inheritance of the sons of Yehudah, and one part from the rest of the tribes of Yaakov. And the tribe of Levi I will disperse among all the tribes of Israel." So not happy with Simeon and Levi. "Yehudah, you did make a confession in the matter of Tamar." Now, we don't get this anywhere, but this is just a tradition that rose up that he did say that Tamar was more righteous than he was, and so that's his repentance there. "Therefore shall your brethren confess you, and shall be called Yehudain in Aramaic, or Yehudaim, or Judahites in our translations. Thy hand shall avenge thee of thy adversaries in throwing arrows upon them when they turn their backs before thee, and the sons of thy fathers shall come before thee with salutation." So people are going to bow down to Judah. "I will liken thee, my son Yehudah, to a whelp, the young of a lion. For from the killing of Joseph, my son, you did uplift your soul, and from the judgment of Tamar you were free." he dwelleth quietly and in strength as a lion, and as an old lion, where he reposeth, who may stir him up? Kings shall not cease, nor rulers from the house of Yehuda, no Sepharim. So remember, the original version had scepter and staff, teaching the law from his seed, till the time of the king, the Messiah, shall come, the youngest of his sons. On account of him shall the peoples flow together. So note what the Targum is saying here about Messiah. So the youngest of Judah's sons, remember he had the three dudes that Tamar married the first two, and he wouldn't marry off the last one. And so Tamar took matters into her own hands, and they had Perez was one of their sons. How beauteous is the king, the Messiah, who will arise from the house of Yehuda. He had girded his loins and descended, and arrayed the battle against his adversaries, slaying kings with their rulers. Neither is there any king or ruler who shall stand before him. The mountains become red with the blood of their slain. His garments dipped in blood are like the outpressed juice of grapes. Very interesting when we look at this in context of Revelation, where we see that the Messiah's blood is red with the blood of his enemies. And so way back we see this connection here. How beautiful are the eyes of King Messiah. So now we're not talking about Judah anymore. We're talking about the line of Judah, the King Messiah. As pure wine, he cannot look upon what is unclean, nor the shedding of the blood of the innocent. And his teeth, purer than milk, cannot eat that which is stolen or torn. And therefore his mountains are red with wine, and his hills are white with corn and with the coats of flocks. Zebulun shall dwell upon the banks of the sea and have dominion over the havens. He will surmount the breakers of the sea, the waves, with ships, and his border will extend into Zidon, or Sidon in Lebanon. Issachar is an ass in the law, a strong tribe, knowing the order of the times, and he lies down between the limits of his brethren. So that's a reference to that verse in Chronicles that said the men of Issachar knew and understood the times. And he saw the rest of the world to come that is good, and the portion of the land of Israel that is pleasant. Therefore he bowed his shoulders to labor in the law, and unto him shall come his brethren bearing presents. So this thought that Issachar became the scholars of the 12 tribes. From the house of Dan there is to arise a man who will judge his people with the judgment of truth. All the tribes of Israel will hearken to him together. Note how much space they're giving to Dan, and actually they're not talking about Dan so much as they're talking about Samson, who came from the line of Dan. A chosen man shall arise from the house of Dan, like the ballast which lies dividing the way, and the serpent's head which lurketh by the way, that biteth the horse in its heel, and the master from his terror is thrown backwards. Even thus will Samson bar Manavach slay all the heroes of Philistia, the horsemen and the foot. He will hamstring their horses and hurl their riders backwards. When Jacob saw Gideon bar Joash and Samson bar Manavach, they who were established to be deliverers, he said, I expect not the salvation of Gideon, nor I look for the salvation of Samson, for their salvation will be the salvation of an hour. But your salvation have I waited, and I will look for, O Lord, for your salvation is the salvation of eternity. The tribe of Gad with the rest of the tribes will, armed, pass over streams of Arnona, and subdue before them the pillars of the earth. And armed, they will return to their limits, into their limits with much substance, and dwell in peace beyond the passage of Jardina. For so they will choose, and it shall be to them to receive their inheritance. Happy is Asher, whose fruitage is plenteous, and whose land abounds in balsams and costly perfumes. Asher, we remember, means happy, and Hebrew translations of the Gospel of Matthew begin with the word ashrei, meaning happy or blessed is the one who does such and such. Naphtali is a swift messenger, like a hind that runneth on the tops of the mountains, bringing good tidings. He it was who announced that Joseph was living. He it was who hastened to go to Mitzrayim, or Egypt, to bring the contract of the double field in which Esau had no portion. And when he shall open his mouth in the congregation of Israel to give praise, he shall be chosen of all the tongues. So it's interesting tradition here about Naphtali is the one who announced to Jacob that Joseph is alive and living in Egypt. The double field here is a reference to Machpelah and Hebron, which we will get to at the end. There'll be a second reference to the double field. Joseph, my son, you have become great. Joseph, my son, you have become great and mighty. The end determined on you was that you should be mighty, because you did subdue your inclination in the matter of your mistress and in the work of your brethren. So as expected, Joseph is going to get several paragraphs here. And according to tradition, Joseph indeed was tempted by Potiphar's wife, and he was tempted by thoughts of revenge on his brothers. But the text here says he subdued those inclinations. You will I liken to a vine planted by fountains of water, which sends forth her roots and overruns the ridges of stones, covers by her branches all unfruitful trees. Even so did you, my son Joseph, subject to your wisdom and good works, all the magicians of Mitzrayim, or the magicians of Egypt. And when celebrating your praises, the daughters of princes, walking on the high places, cast before you bracelets and chains of gold, that you should lift up your eyes on them. Your eyes you would not lift on one of them, to become guilty in the great day of judgment. And all the magicians of Mitzrayim, Egypt, were bitter and angry against him, and brought accusations before him, before Pharaoh, expecting to bring him down from his honor. They spoke against him with slanderous tongue, which is severe as arrows. But he returned to abide in his early strength, and would not yield himself unto sin, and subdued his inclinations by the strong discipline he had received from Yaakov, and thence became worthy of being a ruler, and of being joined in the engraving upon the names of the stones of Israel. From the word of the Lord shall be your help, and he who is called the all-sufficient shall bless thee with the blessings which descend from the dew of heaven from above, and with the good blessing of the fountains of the deep, which ascend and clothe the herbage from beneath. The breast are blessed at which you was sucked, and the womb in which you did lie. The blessings of your father be added to the blessings wherewith my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak have blessed me, which the princes of the world, Ishmael and Esau, and all the sons of Keturah have desired. Let all these blessings be united, and form a diadem of majesty for the head of Joseph, and for the brow of the man who became chief and ruler in Mitzrayim in Egypt, and the brightness of the glory of his brethren. Benjamin is a strong tribe, like the wolf with his prey. In his land will dwell the Shekinah, and that's again God's physical manifestation of the Lord of the world. And the house of the sanctuary be builded in his inheritance. And in the morning will the priests offer the lamb continually until the 4th hour, and between the evenings the second lamb, and at eventide they will divide the residue of the remaining of the offering, and eat every man his portion. Now the original says, in our translation, it says, in the morning he, Benjamin, devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoils. But the sages here take it to mean the future morning and evening offerings in the tabernacle and the temple. And Jerusalem is right on the border between Judah and Benjamin. So depending on where the lines are drawn, you might even say this is looking forward to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which would be near the land of Benjamin. All the tribes of Israel are 12. They are all righteous together, and this is it which their father spake to them, and blessed them according to his blessing. Blessed be each man. And he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave which is in the field of Ephron the Hittite. The cave that is, here it is, the double field over against Mamre. This is all talking about Hebron, in the land of Canaan. For Abraham bought the field of Ephron the Hittite for an inheritance of burial. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Yitzhak and Rivkah, Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and the cave that it is in, of the sons of Hittah. And Yaakov ceased to command his sons, and he gathered up his feet into the midst of the bed, and expired, and was gathered unto his people. So that is chapter 49 in the Targum Pseudo Yonatan. I hope you found this reading interesting. I thought it was kind of fascinating, especially the parts about Messiah and Joseph and Benjamin. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting. We'll see you next time for the final chapter of Genesis, chapter 50.